It's certainly good to see y'all tonight. Thank you for being here. Let's open up with prayer requests. Any special prayer requests or praise reports? Certainly. Amen. Gotcha. Amen. Remember these, along with many others that have COVID, and I know some folks that have gotten it for the second time. Thankfully, the second time for them has not been as serious for some as it has been the first time. But certainly remember those that have it. A lot of flu going around. I wouldn't have thought I had it, but I did, and so thankful that it wasn't as bad as it could have been, I guess. So, but yes, ma'am, Sister Linda. Ellie Stone, yes, just remember Ellie Stone and the Stone family, as she will be having surgery on Monday morning at 7 o'clock in Jacksonville. So just remember, these are there others. If not, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Brother Jay Horton, would you lead us in prayer, please, sir? I had a bit of an issue there. I'm going to fix that. Well, y'all know I've been jumping all around here lately in Jeremiah. And tonight's not going to be any different. In fact, we're going to look at something tonight, but we may go back and pick up. We were last in chapter 43. But tonight we're going to look at just one verse. As I was reading this, obviously I was a little bit behind and trying to play some catch up in some areas, and so focus may not have been as good as it should have been, but there was a verse that stuck out to me, and I want to look at this tonight, and it has to just do with and deal with doing the Lord's work. Every one of us has something that we can be and should be doing for the Lord. And here in Jeremiah chapter 48, verse number 10, really I want to focus on the first part. Not going to get into, because this is going to be more of a just kind of a topical message based from this particular verse and thought that's shared here in verse number 10 of chapter 48. It just simply says this: "Cursed be he that doeth the work of the Lord deceitfully." Look at that again. "Cursed be he that doeth the work of the Lord deceitfully." I'll finish the verse out, even though that first part is what we're going to be focused on. "And cursed be he that keepeth back his sword from blood." Cursed be he that doeth the work of the Lord deceitfully. This verse really is, in that last word there, deceitfully, can be translated in a lot of different ways. But it could be negligently. It could be with slack, with slackness, or it could be, cursed is him who is lax, in doing lazy, in doing the Lord's work. And so, that's the idea that is driven behind that word. And so cursed excuse me, is he who doeth the work of the Lord deceitfully. Let's talk about the work of the Lord. When you hear that phrase, work of the Lord, what is something that, is there anything that comes to mind? The work of the Lord? Is it what's that? Preaching. So is it let me ask you this, is the work of the Lord a narrow subject, or is it something that's pretty broad? It's broad, absolutely. The work of the Lord is absolutely varied, and it involves a lot of different things and includes a lot of different things, and the most important thing that it involves is reaching the lost. That is absolutely the number one thing that the work of the Lord involves is reaching unbelievers, evangelism, and that's how I can't tell you how many times as the Lord was preparing his disciples for his departure, and as he was even leaving them, that he would command them and instruct them to proclaim the gospel, to share the gospel, to be witnesses for him. And so the work of the Lord is very varied, and it involves reaching unbelievers. And in doing that, we have to just under that umbrella, when you if you were to take and break this down, you have the number one thing being reaching the lost, and reaching unbelievers and evangelism. And then how do we do that? How do we evangelize? How do we actually do that? I mean, we know we're supposed to do that, but how is it? We've Brother Miles said preaching, and that's absolutely one of the ways that that we share the gospel. That's one of the ways that we evangelize. And preaching, by the way, just so everybody has an idea, when the Bible talks about preaching, preaching is not always somebody standing behind a pulpit that is reading and preaching to a congregation. Preaching is proclaiming. That's all preaching is. And so it obviously includes preaching or proclaiming the Word of God. What about some other areas? What are some other things that we can do to evangelize? Charity. We have our food pantry in the back. That's a way that we, love on people and try to share the love of Christ with people. And, and so absolutely. What else? Brother Miles is on fire over here tonight, y'all. Y'all better get with it. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of my biggest things I try to get people to understand, and I'm glad Brother Carl said that, is that, we think sometimes that we limit, I think, what we can do for God. But I'm telling you, anything. I've shared with y'all, I've got friends that have some different ministries that they serve through, and all of them do things differently, and all of them have different, the people that operate them and are a part of them are completely opposite people. But, one of my favorite, I look at it, and we've had a couple of people from there here, but, Macedonian missions. Brother Leon Jasper used to be the kind of the head of that ministry. Obviously, they were sent out by different churches, but under that Macedonia mission services, they have mission builders. They have medical missions. They have mechanic services. They have they have technology people that, and they serve the churches, and they, when they go into the communities, it may be, you say, well, how is a building project, how in the world can somebody use that to, they're building a church building. How are they ministering to that community? That's not really a mission services. Well, on top of the people going in and actually doing the work, they usually have folks that say, hey, I'm not toting lumber. I'm not swinging a hammer. I don't know anything about electricity. I'm not a plumber. I don't know how to do any of that stuff, and I really don't want to do that. But I like to talk to people. And so they have people that go out and they do, they evangelize. They go out and hand out, the gospel to people who are passing by. And here that may not be. Obviously, we don't have a sidewalk out in front of our building where people are going to walk by as they're building something or anything like that. But you go to these foreign countries, and I mean people all over the place. And so, and that's people's means of transportation. But they do evangelism in those places. And when they're doing in any of those things, they have usually an evangelism team there when they're doing the medical missions and, just things like that. And so, we can't just put how to reach people in a box. There's so many ways that we can reach people. I've got a guy that I know that has a skateboard ministry. I know nothing about skating, y'all, okay? Look at me. I look like I belong on a skateboard. No, I don't, unless I want to break a bone, and not looking forward to, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to stay off of one. But, he can go out and he can reach people that skate that I would never have a chance to reach. I mean, I got a friend of mine that has an outdoors ministry, and now his is a little bit different. He doesn't necessarily go out to reach outdoors people, but he uses it to reach kids who are fatherless, kids who don't have dads, and they help single moms and things like that. And so it's just it's an amazing ministry that they've used the hunting and fishing to reach people for Christ. We can't limit what we can do to reach people for the Lord. And so again, that's the work of the Lord it's the number one thing is reaching people, but it's so varied, it's so broad. We can't limit the methods that we use. And so not only does it involve reaching believers, but the work of the Lord also involves some teaching. That was part of the Great Commission that God gave us, that whenever he left, and he said in Matthew chapter 28 that go ye into all the world and teach all things whatsoever I've commanded to you. And so we're to teach those new believers, those new converts, and this edification. It involves preparing every. It's our job. If you're a child of God and you are you're born again, you're maturing, and you're growing. Listen, it involves us preparing others, the next group to come through, to be able to teach more disciples, to be able to live that Christ. One of my favorite sayings, and I heard it many years ago, is that disciples make disciples, because it's a cycle. I know that sounds almost cliche, but when you look at what Jesus did, when he called the 12 out to follow him, he called them and he said, "Come follow me and I'll make you fishers. I'm going to make you fishers of men. I have just came." Jesus showed up and he caught them, all 12 of them. And he took them with him, and what he did was he taught them and he poured into them and prepared them to do the same thing. And then they were preparing others to do the same thing. And we're still supposed to be doing that today. And discipleship. And y'all know I've still I've said a lot about discipleship, and I hadn't acted a whole lot on it. And I need to do better. But listen, we're to help and prepare every believer for their walk with the Lord, and to grow and promote godliness in every believer, and training the next generation. That's why it is so important to, I think in our generation, in our society, a lot of what has happened is that our youth in the church, or youth and adults in church, I'll say that, have almost gotten disconnected over time. It used to be that, I sat back and I looked, and I never really understood whenever I was a teenager, I didn't really understand the significance of it then. When I was a teenager, we had youth rallies in our area. And those youth rallies, they were hosted. There was probably 7 or 8 different churches that would take turns. And one Monday night a month, I don't know why Monday night, but one Monday night a month, we would meet at whatever church was hosting it, and we would have a youth rally. Well, there was always a president and a vice president and secretary and all those positions that we had. And, unfortunately, sometimes it became a popularity contest and, in some cases and situations. But I eventually served as vice president and president of our local youth rally, and then even for our state youth assembly, but I never understood, why do we stand up there and conduct a business meeting? I mean, I was a teenager. What's a business meeting, And I didn't understand them, but the idea was to try to help train and teach us how to conduct business and do things like that. I'll be honest with you, if it weren't for that, I wouldn't know what I'm doing up here on a business meeting night. I'd just be fly by the seat of my britches, and which I do anyway. But, it's our job to prepare that next generation. I don't care how you do it. But we've almost gotten so separated that whenever that generation like that's in the back there tonight, if we're not careful, they're not going to know what to do when it comes time to business. What's business? Why do we? You can see it a lot now, and this is not bad mouthing anybody. It's the truth. I don't think people understand the significance. People hear business meeting and I think horror stories flash in their mind of all the ugly and the bad that they hear, or maybe they've experienced even. And so a lot of people don't stay. A lot of people don't come. If they know, I know places where people intentionally don't go to church on business meeting night. They'll go any other Wednesday night, but they're not going business meeting night because they don't want to be a part of anything that might happen. And that's sad. It shouldn't be that way. But, it's our job to prepare that next generation and teach them and encourage them to know how to operate and function and do things. And it involves serving, it involves reaching the lost. It involves, it involves preparing and teaching other believers and edifying other believers, but it also involves service. It involves service. And, we have a responsibility. And these are things that you can go back in the scriptures and find. For example, in Exodus 35:21, and in in verse 29 of that same chapter, and then chapter 36 verses. Let's just look over there at these. I thought my voice was going to start running out of steam eventually, and it will. Get Exodus 35. Exodus 35, and look at verse number 21. And they came, everyone whose heart stirred him up, and everyone whom his spirit made willing, and they brought the Lord's offering to the work of the tabernacle of the congregation, and for all his service, and for the holy garments. Then jump down to verse number 29. The children of Israel brought a willing offering unto the Lord, every man and woman whose heart made them willing to bring for all manner of work, which the Lord had commanded to be made by the hand of Moses. Then you jump over to chapter 36, and you look at verse number 1. Then wrought Bezaleel and Aholiab and every wise-hearted man in whom the Lord put wisdom and understanding to know how to work all manner of work for the service of the sanctuary, according to all the Lord had commanded. And Moses called Bezaleel and Aholiab and every wise-hearted man in whose heart the Lord had put wisdom, even everyone whose heart stirred him up to come unto the work to do it. So, even caring for the building, caring for the property, caring for what God has given us is a part of the Lord's work. It's a part of it. It also not only just the physical things of the building, but also in taking part in the worship service. I've never understood folks that will come and be a part or come to a worship service and sit back and do absolutely nothing. I mean, they ain't going to smile. They're not going to greet nobody. They're not going to sing. They are just going to sit there like a lump on a log. Listen, you should have stayed home on the couch. Ain't even you. What are you getting out of it? You're not going to receive a blessing for that, and God's certainly not blessed by your negligence of worship. And so, it involves taking part and being involved in the worship service, and it includes ensuring that that everything that we do is biblical, that it's scriptural. So we have to understand that what we do here is a part of the Lord's work. When we come here on Wednesday night, when we come here on Sunday morning, Sunday night, whenever we're here, it's a part of the Lord's work. And, I'll tell you a place that we oftentimes fail to realize that is a part of the Lord's work, and that's if you have a job, your job is also a part of the Lord's work. I can tell you that you can turn folks on to Christ, or you can turn them away from Christ by how you act around them. And so our secular jobs are a part of the Lord's work, what we do there. And so we're either doing the Lord's work or we're not while we're there. Not only is it so we see that, again, it's broad, it's wide, it's not just limited to one thing or one service. It's very broad in what the Lord's work is. But Lord's work should be a very high priority. This is an area, and again, I look at this verse, and that first word there, cursed, be he that doeth the work of the Lord deceitfully, or negligently, or with slackness. I look at that and I think, if we, the last part is how you do it, but the first part is what it's saying about you, cursed to the one who does it that way. If we understood that, we would, I think, maybe be a little bit more apt to set it up as a higher priority. And in doing so, I think we would do what Paul told Timothy in 1 Timothy. If you look over at 1 Timothy chapter number 4, in verse number 13. 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 13. Read down through verse 15. It says, till I come, give attendance to reading, to exhortation, to doctrine. Neglect not the gift that is in you, which was given thee by prophecy, with the laying on of hands of the presbytery. Meditate upon these things. Give thyself wholly to them, that thy profiting may appear to all. Devote yourself to it. Devote ourselves. We ought to be devoted to the Lord's work. We ought to be committed to it. We ought to be, steadfast. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, I believe it is, it talks about being steadfast and immovable, always abounding in the Lord's work, always being involved, always making it a priority of doing the Lord's work. It ought to have a high priority. If you look over John chapter number 9. John chapter number 9 and verse number 4. This is, Jesus talking here, and he says, I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. The night cometh when no man can work. Listen, anybody ever have something that you are supposed to do? You have something you're supposed to do, and you think about it long enough. By the way, it's probably not something you really want to do, but you think about it long enough and you say, I'll do that tomorrow. I have stuff that's on my desk at work right now that I left. I said, I'll do that tomorrow. I don't want to do it tonight, today at all. Do it tomorrow. I got stuff at the house that I've said I'll do tomorrow for the last, I won't tell you how long, okay? You just mind your business. You take care of your tomorrows first before you come looking at my tomorrows. We all have those, don't we? But listen, when it comes to the work of the Lord, we can't afford to say, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll share the gospel with that person tomorrow when you have the opportunity to do it right now. Why? Why is that so significant? Because listen, not guaranteed the opportunity to share with them tomorrow. We're not guaranteed that opportunity. We're not guaranteed the opportunity to share with them in an hour. If we have the opportunity to do the Lord's work right now, we need to do it right now. We can't afford to put it off. We can't afford to say, I just don't feel like it. It shouldn't be a matter of whether we feel like it or not. We need to, be focused on the Lord's work now. We need to make the most of every opportunity. If you look over Ephesians chapter number 5. Ephesians chapter number 5, verse 15. See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Listen, redeeming the time, making the most of what time you have right now, of every opportunity. Our problem is a lot of times we allow things to distract us, don't we? We allow things to distract us, and it's most of the time it's not anything of any significance. It's just something that catches our eye and catches our attention, and now all of a sudden what we should be doing, that's the most important thing, that's the Lord's work, we've busied ourselves doing something else. We've busied ourselves with things that are not as significant, don't carry the eternal weight that the Lord's work carries. And so we allow other activities to distract us. And listen, we need to make sure that not only are we doing it now, are we making the most of our time, but that we set out to complete the job that He gave us to do. For some, your completion of whatever job you're doing right now may be when He calls you home. And I don't know I don't know when the completion will be. But it's not complete until He says, okay, you're done with that, move on to something else. I don't care who you are. That's I don't believe that God would call a man to preach and then tell that man, while he's still able and healthy and, no matter how things have gone, I don't think God would tell that person, okay, it's time to stop now. Let's move on to something else. I don't think that's how, I just don't see God doing that. He might say, okay, your work here is done. It's time to move on to here. I believe God would do that. But I don't think, listen, when that man knows that his calling, what his calling is, God's going to use him. God's going to make sure that, he's doing it. And so we have to complete the work that He gave us. Don't just quit halfway in the middle of it. Don't just get, until you get tired of doing it and say, I'm ready to move on to something else. That's not how it works. We have to complete the work that God gave us to do. We need to be like Paul and say, listen, I pressed toward the mark. I've fought a good fight. I've kept the faith. I finished my course, and that's when we leave this earth. Ultimately, is when we're done doing the Lord's work. But there's a lot of different things we can do during that time. But it's got to be a high priority. This Lord's work, the work of the Lord. Why do we do it? Why do we do the work of the Lord? You ever ask yourself that question? Why do I do this, sir? Because He told us to. But it pleases Him. It's pleasing to Him. When we do the work of the Lord, it's pleasing to Him. This means that, that should be our goal. Just like I don't care if you have a boss, or if you're working for somebody, or any of that stuff. When you're given a task to complete, your goal is to make whoever gave you that task happy. Right? You want to be pleased with the work. My boss tells me, hey, I want you to do this. Whenever I bring the finished product to him, I want him to be able to say, hey, good job. I want him to be pleased with my work. Why don't we think about that when it comes to the Lord's work? I want God to be pleased with what I've done. I want God to be pleased with how I've worked. I want Him to be satisfied. And if we would look at it that way more, I think that we would say, hey, you know what? I need to make sure that I am working to excel more in the Lord's work. I want to excel in it. I don't want to just be average. I want to excel. I want to be the best for Him that I can be. I want to be focused on His work. I want to be motivated by the fact that He's going to be happy with the finished product. Well, He's going to be happy with what I've done here. And I think our commitment should exemplify the instructions that are found in 2 Timothy 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 15, that we should be diligent. Be diligent. Give maximum effort. Be unreserved, committed to excellence. Do your best. Do we always do our best for the Lord? I mean, do our best. I could, practice and whatever I'm doing, give Him my best. Our work should be good enough that, as Paul told Timothy, that you don't need to be ashamed. I'll tell you, it's honest, and I'm my own worst critic anyway, just if you didn't know that. I stand before you ashamed, but being honest, so there are times that I've walked out here and I thought, God, I so did not give you my best. And you know what? It didn't just start when I walked up here. It started when I got in this. Were there distractions? Maybe. Did I devote myself to it? Maybe not. There's always things that we look at and you say, man, did I give God my best? Did I really, when it was all done, was I ashamed of what I brought to Him? There's been times I have. Plenty of times that I have. But that should make me say, you know what, I don't know about y'all, but I don't like to be ashamed. I don't like that feeling. I don't like the way. And so knowing that if I'm out to please the Lord, I should be doing my best. I should be pouring myself into what I'm doing for Him. But when people see us with that type of commitment, that type of dedication, that type of passion and zeal to give the best that we have to the Lord, you know what I believe that does for others? I believe it encourages them to do the same thing. To say, hey, you know what? If they can do it, why can't I tell you all the time, y'all know I'm competitive. You know, and I tell myself all the time, that as competitive as I am to not let my 10-year-old or my 6-year-old beat me in a game of Monopoly or in Clue, why would I not be that competitive when it comes to doing things of the Lord? Not just so I can look at you and say, I'm better than you, but I want to bring the best to God. I want to give him the best. Is it going to make a difference to him? No. If it's my best, it's my best. If it's your best, it's your best. That's all he asks from us. But if we would be more competitive and just be diligent and be an example to others. But you know, why would folks be slothful in doing the Lord's work? Why would they be negligent? Why do you think people are? Anybody have any thoughts on why are people, you know, when we look at this, why are folks slack in doing the Lord's work? Why do they not want to bring the best to God? Why do they not want to be more devoted? Why do they not want to be an example to others? Why? What happens? Why do we not give the best? Why do we allow things to distract us? We lose the joy because what do you think that we like? What brings us joy when we do things? You get praise for it. What else? Acceptance. You get some kind of reward, don't you? You know, what is it that gets you up every day? Those of you that still work and have jobs, what does it get you up every day and you go to work? Bills. But knowing that there's a paycheck at the other end of that, right? Even though you may not get to see it very long, if you're like me, mine ain't there long. It goes in and goes right back out. I need to get that spring out of that bank account. I don't know what it's there for, but, it's because there's some type of reward, whether it's praise of people, whether it's a paycheck. Sometimes it's just a feeling of satisfaction of a job being completed. And I think we sometimes fail to realize, because we are an instant gratification people, that instant praise that somebody gives us, that just all of these things that, we want it now. I think we fail to realize that the Lord's work is very rewarding. It's very rewarding. We're going to be rewarded for doing the Lord's work if we do it with our whole heart. And as long as we're not doing it with the motivation of, there's people that claim to be doing the Lord's work, but they're doing it because they want the praise of men. The Bible's very clear. If that's why you're doing what you're doing, that's your reward. If that's what you want, God says, I'm going to let you have that. If what you want is the praise of men, that's just take it. But I'm going to tell you, when you consider the praise of men versus the reward and the blessings of God, hey, they don't compare. They don't compare. We'll receive a prize if we reach forward to press ahead. We'll receive an accolade from the Lord depending on how faithful we are about doing His work. And the rewards that we're going to get, listen, I'm just going to tell you, I could care less if there was, I've always said, you don't say I could care less, because that means you care some. Anyway, I don't care if first of all, if my only reward was salvation, that's plenty. I don't need anything, don't deserve anything else, don't deserve that. We're talking about, he's already, I have salvation. Now he's talking about offering other rewards. Well, listen, I get to spend eternity in heaven, where there is no pain, where there is no sorrow, where there is no suffering. Those are all rewards, in my opinion. But we're laying up treasures in heaven. If you're doing the Lord's work and you're doing it the right way, you know, the rewards we get here, I don't care if it's monetary, I don't care if it's, you know, what it is. If it's money, gold, silver, you know, if it's you know, something physical, guess what? All that stuff's going to burn up and be destroyed one day. And if it's not burned up and destroyed in the end, rust and everything else is going to get to it eventually. It won't last forever. But our home in heaven is going to be for eternity. Amen? That's worth it to me. So there's a reward. There's multiple rewards. But even if we had nothing else, I'm telling you, that right there is worth it alone. To know that what we've got waiting on us is a home in heaven. And so I want to just challenge you. This verse stuck out. Cursed is he who does the work of the Lord deceitfully, slothful, negligently, with slackness. Are you doing what God's called you to do? If you are, to what extent are you doing it? Are you pursuing excellence and giving Him what you can, or are you just kind of haphazardly serving, doing the work of the Lord when it's convenient? Only you can answer that question, but I challenge you tonight that if you are not doing it to the best of your ability, that you ask yourself, why? Why would I not do better? Why would I not strive to do better in my service to Him? Amen? Anybody have any thoughts, comments, questions tonight?